There is a type of person who seems to have an internal radar for diffusing fights before they even start. They are those who, in the face of a heated discussion, lower their voices when everyone shouts, who agree in part just to calm things down, who prefer to swallow discontent rather than face an unpleasant scene. While many see confrontation as something inevitable or even healthy, they see it as an emotional earthquake, something that can destroy everything in seconds. But what really hides behind this almost instinctive aversion to conflict? Is it just a matter of education, or is there something deeper, something that was learned through pain and never forgotten? It is no exaggeration to say that, for these people, avoiding conflict is not a choice, it is a necessity for survival. And before anyone judges this stance as weakness or cowardice, it's worth remembering, not everyone has the privilege of growing up in an environment where fighting was safe. Some learned, as children, that arguments didn't end with hugs and apologies, but with slamming doors, icy silences, or words that cut deeper than any knife. The brain then did what it always does, it adapted. Keeping silent has become a reflex, a self-protection mechanism as automatic as blinking when faced with an object flying towards your eyes. It's not about fear, it's about memory. The memory that, in the past, talking too much or disagreeing was costly. But it's not just childhood scars that shape this behavior. There are also adults who discovered, in practice, that the world does not reward the sincere. How many times has someone heard "you're too dramatic" or "why does it have to be so difficult?" just for expressing a contrary opinion? How many times has a relationship, a friendship, or even a job been put at risk by a single misinterpreted sentence? Over time, the cost of being honest begins to seem greater than the benefit. It's easier to nod, turn around, or change the subject than risk being labeled boring, negative, or difficult to deal with. Society, after all, rewards those who maintain peace, even if that peace is a facade. And here's the paradox: those who avoid conflict at all costs often end up becoming masters of internal conflict. Because swallowing your opinion is not a neutral act, it is a small betrayal of yourself, over and over again. Every okay, every let it go, every it's not worth it accumulates like an emotional debt. Until one day, without warning, the cup overflows. It could be an unexpected cry in the bathroom, an outburst of anger over something insignificant, or worse, a silent resentment that corrodes from within, like rust on a seemingly solid structure. The body, after all, does not forget what the mind tries to ignore. But it would be unfair to reduce this stance to just fear or repression. These individuals have a rare emotional intelligence. They see what many do not, that words, once spoken, cannot be undone, that some battles are not worth the energy, that preserving a relationship is sometimes more important than proving that you are right. They are people who value harmony not out of weakness, but out of wisdom. After all, anyone who has seen a war field up close knows that victory often leaves deeper scars than defeat. However, there is a fine line between avoiding unnecessary conflicts and erasing one's voice. Because when someone spends their life molding themselves after others, they run the risk of losing sight of who they really are. The challenge, then, is not learning to fight, it's learning to choose your battles. Understanding that disagreeing is not synonymous with destruction, that setting limits is not selfish, and that being true to yourself is not a luxury, but a necessity. If you recognize yourself in these words, no, you are not a coward. Are you someone who learned, the hard way, that the world can be a dangerous place for sincere people? But he is also someone who has the quiet courage of someone who prefers peace to war, even when war seems inevitable. And that, in itself, is already a form of resistance. Perhaps the most important lesson is not to stop avoiding conflict, but to understand why you avoid it. Because only when we look at our own shadows can we decide if they still serve us, or if it's time to let the light in. And you, how do you deal with conflicts in your life? Comment here, who knows? Maybe your experience will help someone reading this now. If this text made sense, share it with those who also need to hear these words. And if you want more reflections like this, turn on notifications so you don't miss anything. Until next time. Oh, and remember, sometimes, the biggest conflict we need to resolve is the one we have against ourselves. The silence that speaks the loudest, when choosing not to respond, is the most powerful response. Have you ever been in an argument where every word felt like a knife, and the only thing you wanted was to disappear. Not out of weakness, but because something inside you screamed, "This isn't going anywhere." There is a type of courage that is not measured by the volume of one's voice, but by the ability to remain silent when the world demands noise. It's not about running away. It's about recognizing that some battles are not yours to fight and that sometimes the wisest victory is the one you don't need to announce. Because anyone who has been in the eye of the hurricane knows, silence is not empty, it is the space where things rearrange themselves. The art of not feeding the fire, even when it burns you. Imagine a bonfire. Someone throws wood, someone blows the wind, and everyone waits for you to fuel the flames with more words, more justifications, more anger. But what if, instead of throwing gasoline, you simply let the fire go out on its own? It's not cowardice. It's strategy. Because anyone who has ever burned their hands knows that not every fire deserves to be put out with their own strength. Sometimes, the best way to win is to let the other person realize, alone, that they are talking to the wall. And here's the secret that few understand: anyone who needs an audience to feel powerful has already lost it before they even start. What your silence says about you, and why it scares others. People who need answers, who demand explanations, justifications, or even fights, are usually afraid of one thing: that you don't need them. Because when you stop reacting, you take away the control they thought they had over you. Whoever screams wants you to scream back. Those who provoke you want you to lose your temper. Those who judge want you to defend yourself, and thus confirm that your words have power. But when you just don't play along, something magical happens. The script breaks. And that's when they start to wonder, why isn't he mad? Why isn't she explaining herself? Am I the one in the wrong? Your silence is not weakness. It's a mirror. When being quiet is the only way to be heard. Have you ever noticed how, in the midst of a tumult, the quietest voice is the one that attracts attention? There is a strange strength in someone who doesn't have to compete with the noise to be noticed. In toxic relationships, silence is the line that separates respect from manipulation. At work, it's the difference between those who waste themselves in fruitless discussions and those who choose their words as investments. In the family, it's what prevents old wounds from opening up just because someone wanted to poke them. It's not about ignoring. It's about choosing where to put your energy. Because anyone who has ever spent hours explaining something to someone who didn't want to understand knows, sometimes, the best answer is to give none. Silence as an act of self-preservation, because not every confrontation deserves you. Imagine your time, your peace, and your energy as a garden. Every unnecessary argument is like stepping on flowers just because someone walked by with dirty boots. You can 1. Running after them, shouting, demanding them to stop, and, in the process, destroy even more what he planted. 2. Build a fence, boundaries, and let those who don't respect it get hurt alone. Silence, in this case, is not passivity. It's the fence. It's you saying, "No stepping on here." And here's an uncomfortable truth: those who truly deserve you won't make you choose between their peace and their presence. The difference between being quiet and giving up, because one thing is wisdom, the other is surrender. There are 2 types of silence. 1. The silence of resignation, when you remain silent because you think you don't deserve to be heard. 2. The silence of sovereignty, when you remain silent because you know you don't need to prove anything. The first shrinks. The second expands. Those who give up keep quiet because they think they lost. Those who evolve keep quiet because they have already won. And how do you know the difference? From what happens next. If you feel smaller, it was resignation. If you feel whole, it was power. What to do when silence hurts, because it's not always easy. Of course, it's not simple. Being silent when you are right hurts. Don't react when they cause you to burn. Letting people think what they want screws with the ego. But here's what no one tells you: this pain is temporary. What remains is the freedom to no longer be trapped in the cycle of proving, convincing, justifying. And when doubt comes, because it will, ask yourself, will this matter a year from now? Does this person deserve my energy? Am I keeping quiet out of fear or choice? If the answer is choice, then it is not silence. It's peace. For those who still think that being silent is losing. If you grew up hearing that those who remain silent consent or that they have to show their face, no, these phrases were created by those who are afraid of their power. Because when you stop explaining, you stop asking for permission to exist. And this scares those who always thought they could control their reaction. So the next time you are told that you are cold, distant, or arrogant for not engaging in empty arguments, remember, a lion does not need to roar to prove that it is a lion. And now, the question that doesn't want to be silenced. Have you ever used silence as a weapon? How it was? Comment here, who knows, maybe your story will help someone reading this now to stop fighting battles that aren't theirs. If this text made sense, share it with those who need to hear that you are not obliged to give explanations. And if you want more reflections like this, turn on notifications so you don't miss anything. Until next time. Oh, and remember, sometimes the most powerful answer is the one you don't give. Lion. The silence that speaks louder than screams. Have you ever noticed how some people have the ability to shut up a room without saying a word? It's not indifference. It's not disinterest. It's pure presence, the same one that makes a lion not need to roar to be respected, or an ocean not need to justify its depth. While the world applauds whoever speaks the loudest, whoever shouts the loudest, whoever takes up the most space, they choose the opposite, the art of not filling all the gaps. And that, my friend, is the kind of power that scares those who only know how to exist in noise. Why does silence bother you so much? Because it requires others to face their own voices. Imagine a heated argument. Everyone speaking at the same time, repeating arguments, raising the tone. Suddenly someone stops. Just stop. Don't leave the room. Don't give up. Just let the silence do its work. What happens? Whoever was screaming loses their breath, literally. Whoever was lying gets tangled up in their own words. Anyone who was afraid is forced to listen to their own conscience. Silence is not absence. It's a mirror. And not everyone is ready to look at what they reflect. The 3 types of silence, and which one you use. Not all silence is the same. Some are shields, others swords, and still others bridges. What's yours? 1. The silence shield, self-protection. I'm not going to fuel this discussion. My words won't change anything here. When to use, with people who just want to win, don't invite. Ursa. Effect, you save energy and make it clear that you are not a stage for other people's dramas. 2. The silence sword, strategy. I'm going to let him drown in his own contradictions. Sometimes the best response is no response. When to use, when the other person needs to listen to themselves to understand the absurdity of what they are saying. Effect, silence exposes the fragility of those who depend on noise to feel powerful. 3. The silence bridge, connection. Sometimes, being silent is giving the other person space to open up. Not every void needs to be filled. When to use, in moments of pain, confidence, or deep reflection. Effect, creates a safe space where the most important words can be born. What they don't tell you about who to shut up. Anyone who calls you cold for not engaging in empty arguments is actually afraid. Fear that you don't need their approval. Fear that you have enough self-confidence to not justify your choices. Fear that, deep down, they are the ones dependent on the attention you don't give them. Because when you stop explaining, you stop asking for permission to exist. And that destabilizes the entire game. The question you need to ask before you speak. The next time you feel like getting into an argument, justifying a choice or responding to a provocation, pause and ask. Will this bring me closer to the person I want to be? Or will it just take me away from the peace I deserve? If the answer is the second option, breathe. He used to smile. And let the silence do the work for you. True stories, when silence changed everything. Here you could insert testimonials or cases of people who used silence as a tool of power. Real examples increase credibility and engagement. My boss humiliated me in meetings. Until the day I stopped reacting. He lost interest in attacking me. Silence shield. My mother always criticized my choices. When I stopped arguing, she started listening to me. Silence bridge. An ex tried to manipulate me into jealousy. I ignored it. He gave up within a week. Silence sword. Moral of the story? Silence is not passivity. It is the most active response there is. What to do when silence is misunderstood? Because, yes, they will call you arrogant, distant, indifferent. And there. 1. Don't explain. This only feeds the cycle. 2. Don't justify yourself. Anyone who needs justification doesn't deserve your energy. 3. Maintain posture. Consistency is what turns silence into respect. Remember, a diamond doesn't lose its value because someone doesn't know how to recognize it. For reflection, silence as an act of rebellion. In a world that rewards hyperactivity, that confuses noise with importance, that values those who speak more instead of those who have more to say, being silent is a revolutionary act. It's not about stopping talking. It's about choosing when your voice really matters. And now, the question that doesn't want to be silenced. When was the last time you used silence as a weapon, shield, or bridge? Was it a family argument? At work? With a toxic friend? Comment here. Your story could be the push someone needs to stop fighting battles that aren't theirs. If this text made sense, share it with those who need to hear that you are not obliged to give explanations. And if you want more reflections like this, turn on notifications so you don't miss anything. Until next time. Oh, and remember, sometimes the most powerful answer is the one you don't give. Fire PS. The world is full of people talking. Be one of those who make silence worth it. The silence that speaks louder than any word. Have you ever noticed how some people have the ability to shut up a room without saying anything? It's not about rudeness, nor about ignoring. It's about a presence so intense that words become unnecessary. While the world applauds those who speak loudly, those who master silence control the pace of the conversation. It's not passivity, it's strategy. It's not weakness is contained strength. Why silence is the new form of power. 1. It filters what deserves attention. In a world of cheap opinions and empty speeches, keeping quiet is a quality filter. Those who talk too much often say little. Whoever chooses when to speak says what matters. 2. It creates mystery, and mystery attracts. The most interesting people are not those who tell everything, but those who leave spaces to be discovered. Silence invites curiosity. 3. He diffuses conflicts before they explode. A heated argument can be diffused with a look, a pause, a sigh. Those who master silence do not need to shout to be heard. 4. It reveals more than any words. A sigh at the right moment says more than a speech. A fixed look communicates more than an explanation. Silence is not empty, it is pure language. Silence as a mirror, what does it reflect about you? Stop and think, when was the last time you chose not to respond? Was it when someone tried to provoke you and you refused to play? Was it when an argument wasn't worth your time and you preferred to save your energy? Or was it when you knew that your words would have more weight if they weren't spoken at that moment? Silence is not the absence of voice, it is a choice of moment. And the people who master this art, they are not ignored. They are observed. The science behind the power of silence. Studies in psychology and communication show that heavy checkmark strategic pauses increase the perception of intelligence. Those who talk non-stop seem insecure. Heavy checkmark calculated silences in negotiations increase pressure on the other side. Whoever speaks first often loses. Heavy checkmark people who listen more than they talk are seen as wiser and more trustworthy. It's no wonder that great leaders, strategists, and seducers master the art of saying little and having a lot of impact. How to use silence to your advantage, without appearing cold or distant. 1. When negotiating, wait for the other person to speak first. Whoever breaks the silence first often gives ground. 2. In emotional discussions, breathe before responding. A 3-second pause can avoid unnecessary conflict. 3. To create attraction, leave spaces in the conversation. Anyone who talks too much loses the mystery. 4. To gain respect, don't justify your choices. Anyone who explains too much sounds like they are asking for permission. The question that will make you rethink your way of communicating. If you could erase every word you said in the last 7 days, how many of them actually made a difference? How many were wasted on meaningless discussions? How many were said out of habit, without intention? How many did you regret saying? True power is not in filling the air with words, but in knowing when to leave it silent. To reflect on silence as a legacy. Think about the people you admire most. Are they the ones who talk non-stop, or the ones who say little, but when they open their mouth, everyone listens? The world is full of noise. Be one of those voices that don't need to scream to be heard. Now, it's your turn. When was the last time silence worked in your favor? In a family conflict? In a negotiation at work? Or even in a flirtation, when you let the mystery do the work? Comment here. Your story could be the spark someone needs to stop wasting energy on what they don't deserve. If this text made sense, share it with those who need to learn that not every battle needs words. And if you want more reflections like this, turn on notifications so you don't miss anything. Until next time. Oh, and remember, sometimes the most powerful answer is the one you don't give. Fire PS. The world is full of people talking. Be one of those who make silence worth it. But don't confuse silence with omission. Strategic silence is action. Passive silence is waste. Which of the two have you been practicing?